Here we did all the short talk, right? And the second thing that I found about in my second visit to Cluj right now is that you have this place called the Romanian Palace of Parliament, which is very cool, and it's like the second biggest administration building in the world. Right. So that's cool, right? And I heard that you guys are having some good parties there. So I mean, you're paying your taxes and you're going to the right place, so that's awesome. That's really cool. And this other thing I learned about Romania is that you have this guy called Eugene Pavel, which I don't know if all of you remember that name or know it, but apparently he's a Romanian scientist who figured out that we need this in the world. You remember what are those? Right? They're CD-ROMs. Everyone has them, right? And the best things about having CD-ROMs, and especially when you're a Linux guy and you're very young and you do Linux LAN parties and installation, is that you get to play with Windows ME. So thank you, Eugene Pavel. You brought some good stuff to the world. So today I want to talk about different perspective about JavaScript and the community and all of that, and take just a step back and talk about open source a little bit and how the basic stuff with JavaScript really started to blow the web. And some of that is how we are also using that from HPE, right? So just a short quiz, how many of you have a GitHub account? Great, you're a great audience for this presentation. Thank you. And how many of you have contributed to open source in the past? Great, yeah, that's nice. All right, so we'll do some of that today as well. And I have to ask these questions. If you had one superpower to choose, would it be flying or being invisible? Because I would go for flying. Flying? Yay. So I did the same thing in Israel and also here in another meetup. And I don't know, people were like, less flying, more invisible. And I mean, what's up with that? We're invisible like every day, right, at the computer. Okay, so good for all the flying guys, thank you. We'll have a formation, run over drones, everything powered by a MEAN stack with Node.js in the backend. That's awesome. So beyond that, a little bit about me. So I work for Hewlett Packard Enterprise. I'm managing a team there, and we do a lot of very exciting stuff, one of which is building the content marketplace for HP products. And you may think about a Hewlett Packard as something that's very big, a corporation, you install stuff. So we do something else. We create the content marketplace for all the software that gets developed and deployed on people's computer, and we provide the content for that. So that really gives you like a lot to work with, right? That's a platform that's serving millions of users, and everyone works with that. And it's very different from other HP products. So it's very nice, and as you can see, it will look like that, right? We're working on that right now, which is very nice. So we do a lot of Node.js stuff and JavaScript, MEAN stack all over the place. And all of that is really, and it may sound weird because it's coming from HP and that's a corporation. You don't expect them to do that. You expect .NET, right? Java, boring, PHP, Python stuff, whatever. So we're not. We're like a startup mode inside it, and we're like 25 developers or just around a neat team like that, and we get to manage to try and do all of those crazy stuff, like Solar's Elasticsearch. We have a Python stack, we have a PHP stack. We'll talk about it in a minute, how we changed from that, right? JavaScript. But it's challenging. So one of the challenging stuff that I have as what part of what I do is I manage team, right? So I don't really have time to do all the 9 hours of day that you guys do in JavaScript development. You do amazing stuff. So I try to do that, Paul. I try to do that at home, at the office a little bit.
Oh, that's obvious. You have no time
I'm
for
trying
coding.
to keep up. So I'm doing my share of contributing to open source projects. And maybe one of those biggest efforts was an enterprise scale kind of thing. And biggest contribution in the JavaScript community was taking MEAN.JS forward from where it left off and just managing that. And that's not easy, just like another team at home. So managing a couple of teams. So we're going to go and talk a little bit about open source. And this is really something I want to get all of you into that and work with me. So you know who this guy is? This guy is Richard Stallman. He was like an open source evangelist, still is. Since the 80s, he started something that's called the Free Software Foundation back then, where he wanted to promote a lot of software and make that work for other people as well, not just proprietary stuff. And he has this vision, right, that everything should be, you can run whatever you want, you can run it on whatever you want. You can run it to hack some people, or you can run it to learn from it. You can do whatever you want with that piece of software. It has to be free, right? Not in terms of cost always, but it has to be something that you can do. So that sounds pretty bad, right? I mean, back then, 80s, 90s, Linux and all of those, philosophies of everything free and open source, and you can redistribute that, right? Microsoft wasn't happy with that. So this guy came in, right, in an interview around 2001, and he said, part of that was Linux is cancer, which is driving all of us developers like, we want to kill you. So I guess he's a nice guy, right? He contributed his share to computing, and that's great. But he said that, and no one was happy about it, trust me. So a few years before that interview, by the way, so a couple of guys, Eric Raymond, very popular guys around the open source community, they said, right, we want to advance open source, but we don't want to talk about, are you getting money from that? Are you not getting money from that? We want to talk about promoting open source as a methodology, so you can code review your stuff with other people, not just keep it, secretive. No one sees that, Apple boxed, Microsoft boxed, Facebook boxed, whatever. So they created the open source initiative, and that's kind of a way to get people. They still, of course, support. They talk about licenses, and we see that every day. But that's how it all started back then. So basically, if you had to define open source, that would be, a software license that ensures certain freedoms that you can do. And you have several software licenses, and some give you patent grants and others don't. And today, who thinks about open source, right? That's maybe one of the biggest statements. I mean, who thinks that nothing should be open source? We work with open source software every day. Do you think Angular would have been what it is if it wouldn't be open source? Probably not, right? So this is really the statement that today we are beyond open source. We get that for granted. If something would be closed source, we would go, what are you doing with that? So this is one of the most, I think, strongest statements that we see today. And some of the benefits of open source, why you should open source your software, why you should go for that, why you should work with a community about it. So part of that, right, is you can view and modify the software to do whatever you want. You can learn from it, you can distribute it for your friends, send it over. We have GitHubs and stuff for that. You can fix the software and extend it. For example, I'll talk about it later. We took Drupal as a CMS and wanted to write, to do that content marketplace for that, right? Drupal, PHP, content management platform. And we took it and we did, like 180 degrees with it. And that's good because that's what we can do with open source software. We do it every day. We fork projects and we make them our own for whatever reasons that we have. So, right, that's an elevated sense of joy that you get when working on open source software. And when I do that at the office, I see that that's one of my team members, and he's like that every day. Seriously, he's like jumping around, and that's really great. I'm very happy for him because I'm happy when he's happy. So that's good. Right, you dance like that, right? Secretively when you get home. I know. So for companies and products, this whole open source notion, it sounds weird, right? And I'm coming from Hewlett Packard Enterprise. It's like a corporation, whatever, billions of dollars. What's open source about it? So there is a lot of value, and we use it every day at the office. And one of which is that we are reusing existing solutions. We do not go and invent our own database. We do not go invent our own front end. We don't invent anything that we don't need. We go and use that. So that's for us, starting from something that's not zero. And the other thing is, so developer evangelism, right, and support, you get the community behind that. There was like Amber here from Tom Dale. And you go for those projects because there's a community behind it, right? For React, it's like the entire world is a community, so why not? We'll choose that, right? So one more thing that Eric Raymond noted in one of his articles was that he coined it as Linus's law, which is given enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow. And that's really one of the coolest things about open source because if you have a problem with your software, someone's going to go and see it, right? And they're going to pull requests, or they're going to open an issue, and they're going to help you solve that, right? So this is one of the really things that get excited about, because that's how you get collaborated and you know, better code. And this is another, maybe another quote, that's the more widely available the source code is, right? It's out there for scrutiny, right? People can help you make that better. So talking about all of this open source, but right, we're all JavaScript developers and we use Angular, we don't necessarily contribute to that. So how much impact can you guys make doing open source projects? And this is something I would like you all to get out of this conference afterwards and think about how you can help that, right? So this is Linus Torvalds. If you recognize the guy, that's the one who created Linux. And at 1991, he sent an email over a FeedOnNet mailing group, whatever that was. And he said, I'm doing a free operating system, and I bolded it for you if you can't read that, but just a hobby won't be anything big like GNU. So we all know where Linux is today, right? But he was that naive back then. And you know, not for any bad reason, but you never know what's going to be the consequences of what you start. And I'm sure that a lot of open source projects really started that way. You don't know where it's going to go, but somehow the community around it really reflects and creates an impact. So this is how much impact can you make. And from a personal story I want to tell you about is, back then, about a decade ago, 2007, I started working for a company that we developed some software for providing wireless software solutions. Basically, you create a hotspot like you have here for the hotel, and you connect. And you get it back then, 10 years ago, it wasn't as ubiquitous as it is now. And if you wanted it, you had to pay for that, right, and get a voucher, and it was timely limited for 1 hour surfing, so it wasn't that easy. And we tried to create software that really manages all of the aspects of that, so billing and management and account and how you log in, and you want to have a reporting system on top of that, and there wasn't any good solution that we had to do that. So, of course, one of the obvious things that you do, right, it's you start creating an open source project, but there's no GitHub at that point, right? That's bad. And 2007, there was SourceForge and SVN, God forbid, right? Who uses SVN here? I'll catch you. Don't raise your hands. All right, so, but SVN is really bad, right? You want Git and all of that, and we didn't have it back then. We had SourceForge. So that's how I started founding my first really serious impacting open source projects. I named it helloRadius, which, by the way, the most difficult thing for a software engineer to do is pick a name, right? When you want to pick a name for a variable or a function, it's like you do that for 5 minutes, you're wondering, how am I going to call it? Right? How am I going to call that? Because I need to remember that, and it needs to be useful. And I don't care that JavaScript that compiles that to whatever minified version. So the name wasn't easy, and it's like my wife's last name, whatever. So that ended up being helloRadius. So the next thing that was challenging was choosing a logo, right? You have to choose something. You can't have some open source software without a logo. It's like branding. So it was a PHP-based software, and it was all spaghetti code, whatever you can imagine, like 10 years ago. It was like my first real open source project that I was doing web development for. So PHP, HTML, JavaScript, everything is like upside down, but it worked. And it looked like that, which you can see and be amazed as I am to the amount of tables, right? HTML5, and now we have tables. So it was tables and stuff, but it worked. I don't know what made it work. I was very, at that point, you know, I was always engaged about open source since I was young, Linux, kernel stuff, mailing list, but I don't know what made it work, but it worked. So this is what was the SourceForge page looking like, and if you have to reflect back, you know what GitHub is, and most of you raised your hands, and you had to reflect back and figure out what's different from what we have today with GitHub to SourceForge, right? I would say, you see that green download button? So everything on GitHub is green download. You download packages, you download a jar, a zip, whatever it is, exe, but you download something. And GitHub, you don't have that download button, right? From UX perspective telling you, click on me, download me. You have source code, you have files, you have clone me, fork me, comment. So this is one, I think, of the major concepts that got changed, right? I mean, people are talking about collaboration with GitHub. It's not anymore download something and use it as some separated open source project, and you don't care about that anymore. So, about a decade later, right, almost 2017, I have, just for the presentation, I go in, I maintain this project, from time to time, answer people for emails and bug requests and security stuff that they find, okay? So like 10,000 weekly downloads, which I have no idea still who's downloading it, but someone is, and trust me, there are no projects, bot projects calling SourceForge because that's like a dying website. So someone is downloading it, and from retrospective, you go and you find that almost 300,000, right, 100 people downloaded that. I mean, that's an impact. That's like many, many, many users that I was helping create a Wi-Fi business, right, run their university Wi-Fi hotspot system, right? I know because I was talking to other customers at that time and giving professional support that commercial companies, big names were also using that too, right? Telecom companies wanting to provide Wi-Fi. So that's the amount of impact, and I could never figure that out, right? How big that would be at that point. It just started rolling like, a snowball and became what it is. And the amount of, software engineering there, it's not very smart, right? That's like your first web development project. That's not going to be anything smart. PHP, HTML, just putting stuff. And I was like, all right, I need to do this feature and this feature and this, and I was never thinking about everything in between. So it was very tough, but it made an impact and helped people, and that's what's important behind it. So one of the things that struck me after that, and I just checked that for the presentation today, was that I was searching on LinkedIn for people who has the $radius keyword, and I don't know, apparently people put it on their CVs, right, on LinkedIn, that they're using this software, which is, for me, that, I'm happy for them. That's great, but this is, I'm trying to convey that to you. This is the amount of impact that you can do as well, and that makes me very happy. So you really can make an impact as well, okay? That's really the bottom of it, that you can make change. And if I didn't sell all of that to you yet, we'll do it throughout the day, but I'm saying if Internet Explorer is brave enough to be your default browser, you guys, you gotta take that courage and then run those open source softwares, okay? Thanks. Thank you. Right, so why start, thank you. So why start an open source project? So many reasons for that, and basically one of which is you want to scratch an itch, right? Not this kind of itch, okay? So you want to do something that no one else did. You want to do something different. You see a way to give value in a different way, right? That's why you start those open source projects. I mean, React, I don't know why it was created, but probably because Angular did something bad, right? Those guys saw that they are having all those watchers going around in Angular and it wasn't very performant. Whatever other reasons that they had, but someone had good reasons to do it. So people find the need, right? And they do something with it, right? They proactively go on and create their projects. And it takes that momentum that, right? Some libraries go on and blow up. So where do we start? So GitHub, which I would like to call it the cyberspace of scratching itches with other people, right? They have a boring name for that. Their tagline is like, we make it easier to collaborate with other people and share the code across the universe, whatever. So just scratch with other people, that's great. And I want to tell a story about my personal itch, which was Node.js back like 2 years ago. And I was also fascinated by it because at that point, I will tell you later, we started doing that software stack in HP to build that content marketplace. And it was, we had PHP there with Drupal, and we knew it couldn't scale to what we need, right? There was bad QA automation testing that we didn't invest in, and we just started developing that, but not investing in that automation. So Node at that point seemed like something that was interesting, right? And going to the JavaScript area as well. So it blew the web by a storm. I think it's still blowing JavaScript, it's still blowing everything. You get frameworks everywhere. And that's really where it started. And everyone started talking about being mean, right? So not that mean. Okay, you know him. It's the scary guy. So they were talking about being mean like that. So what does it mean to be mean? Right, full stack developers. So you start off with having some MongoDB database, persistent layer, whatever it is, that you need to save your resources. And then you go and add to that the server-side Node.js, and then you add the web application framework for Express. And on top of that, to really complete that full cycle for full stack, you add the front-end library, which is Angular. So those are the acronyms for MEAN, we all know that. So that's how it starts. And if we go through each one of them really briefly, so MongoDB is a NoSQL database, document storage. As you can see, you see a bunch of objects like I do. It's a document, a JSON, that's really nice. And then you go to Express, and when you work there, right, you work at the Express level on the node, and you see those routing, right, and you're working again with JavaScript stuff, which is like JSON, and you can add JSON objects where you need them. So that's nice, right? You're full stack developers, that's great. And then you go and do the front-end area, and well, that's obviously JavaScript. But again, you do AngularJS, and if you look at some piece of the code for that, you find out that you are having those CRUD operations, and you are manipulating, again, JSON objects, which is, again, great. So that's kind of full stack. And Angular, you get that from Google. It's testable, data binding, reusable. But Tom is here, so Angular sucks, right? Go for Ember. Seriously, go for Ember. So Node.js, you got that, and I really like that, right? I am more of a server-side kind of thing. That's my tendency. And when it started, I just call it like a multi-purpose JavaScript platform. You can do whatever you want with it. And that's why I like it, because you can do really whatever you want, right? We think about it as the web server, but it's not a web server, right? It's not a web server. You can use that to build SMTP protocols, whatever you want to build a mail client that will get mail from an email, will process that, will search for some keywords and run something else with it. You can do that, right? You doesn't have to be a web server. You can do some CLI with it, right? We saw Tom's presentation with Ember, and you can just do some CLI stuff with it, so it can be a smarter CLI to manage your stuff, right? AWS has that CLI. You can provision things. You can do that in Node. And that's great because you're still writing JavaScript. Controlling Arduino board, right? How many of us are going to go for that IoT stuff, right? Internet of Things, and you want to do those Raspberry Pis projects in Arduino. And that's funny because I didn't yet get into that area, but Arduino has this project called Johnny 5. Don't know if you've heard of it, but it's basically just Node.js and JavaScript talking to the Arduino and moving that hardware thing around. So that's great. We can do all of that using JavaScript again. So the benefits of all of those are pretty obvious, I guess, to all of us. You get shared language, which is JavaScript. You get shared object, which is JSON, so you don't really need to do all of that serialization stuff going on and context switching from that to Python or PHP or whatever you have on the back end. And that really makes you a full stack developer, right? Because everything is there in the stack that you know. And maybe most importantly, you have a shared ecosystem, right? I mean, this is something that it doesn't exist for any other platform, right? Java, Maven stuff, those stuff, you have to learn something new or figure it out, and that works with XML or whatever. So with JavaScript, you have that shared ecosystem. You have that grunt tool, which is, again, JavaScript or Gulp or Webpack or whatever. And if you want to run your automation, you're testing stuff, so that's Jasmine, Mocha, whatever it is. So everything is same place. That's easy for us. So is it too good to be true? Right? No. Thank you. All right, so little story about this girl. She was 15 when she won 100, or not 100, right? Like a few medals. So this is Nadia Comaneci. And when she's a Romanian gymnast, right? I'm in Romania trying to relate this. Right, so cool. So but she did something that she did, first, and no one else did before her. And that was that she had a perfect score, but the board showed 1, right? It didn't know how to handle 10. No one ever thought to program the board to be able to do 10 because no one thought that it could be done a perfect score, right? So good for her, and some things are maybe, too good to be true and some are not. But seriously, when you think about JavaScript, when I think about it, right, it's everywhere. You can't run from it. You can try, but it's going to find you. You're trying to run from Ember to to React, but then Tom is telling you about fastboot. So you're back to that, right? You cannot run away from this. And I don't know, maybe it's good, right? We'll see. So some of the challenges with JavaScript. If before legacy web development was throwing that LAMP stack, that we had before, we were throwing some PHP there, some HTML, Apache MySQL, Perl, Python, whatever you use for the server side, you would throw some CSS. Everything got so much complicated, right? It's nice that everything is JavaScript, but you cannot, learn Grunt and then learn Gulp and then learn Webpack, in one day, and everything is moving so fast, right? So this is really the challenge. How do you get also everything talking to each other? Because it is nice to work with Angular or Ember on the front end, and it's nice to work with Node, but something has to serve those pages, right? Something has to compile that CSS. Something has to minify the stuff and connect everything, and you have live reload and NodeMon or whatever it is that you're using, but something has to do all of that work. And while it's nice that everything is JavaScript, come on, it's different contexts, and you need to gain the skill to do that well. So the JavaScript ecosystem is seriously a messy place. So you have MongoDB, right, which you start choosing, you're saying, I'm going for the min stack. But then you read some articles, you Google about it, and you find out that there's CouchDB as well. What's up with that? And there's, I don't know, Cassandra or Redis, which can maybe persist stuff. And so you go for maybe MongoDB and say, OK, I'll keep with that. So you go on and you say, I'll go for Express. That seems right. But then, so you start choosing. You Google on that, and you see there's like Happy and Koa and Restify. And you say, all right, I'll go for Express. I think that's well. And then you read about TJ Holochak, right? He's the Node.js guy. He has like, I don't know, billion packages on NPM.js. He wrote Express. And then you read that he's going to do Go, right? You did Node.js for like, I don't know, 5,000 years, and now you're going to do Go. You're going to abandon that. So that makes you wonder, right? It's not so easy to work when everything is moving around. And the struggle never ends, right? Because it's Angular, but should I pick something else? Is something else better for the job? So for newcomers, and not only newcomers, you have to have an architecture that is working well, but you have to do some choices there. So it's like going into the candy store, right? Who was a child going into a candy store and going back with one candy, right? No one. I know you. No one was going back. So it's hard, it's tough. And so it was so tough that this guy created Node frameworks, and he wanted to try and kind of give you some, these are MVC, right, frameworks, so you can choose one of those, and these are isomorphic frameworks, and you can choose one of those. And so many frameworks, so it's like now you're picking up frameworks, you're not even picking up technologies. It's that bad, right? It's a messy place. So the tooling ecosystem, that's not helping us. That's like more stuff that we need to choose from, right? Am I going to go work with SAS or less, right? And you have your colleague, he's working with less, and he's telling you it's better, and you're saying, no, it's not. And it doesn't end. You just fight about it all day, and you don't go and commit code, so that's bad. But it doesn't end there, right? There's Mocha and Jasmine and Karma and Protractor and whatever they have. I mean, everything has its place there, but you have NPM for Node packages, and you have Bower for the front-end stuff, so you can resolve that with NPM again, but everything has its place, but it's still very hard, right? Bootstrap, and you have Foundation. Any way you look at it, there are choices, and choices are not bad, but it's blowing the web and really messing things up. And I think what's worse for that for us is that we are fragmenting the ecosystem, right? Instead of everyone going and pushing some code to Ember, we go and fork it and do something ourselves, and we may not do something, right? Merge it back. We go choose something else. That's fragmenting it, and that's the problem that has been for years in the PHP world. There were so many frameworks. Like I think if you go phpframeworks.com or whatever that is, you would see like 300 frameworks, right? And just bad. So those build tools that we have, right, we cover that. You want to maximum, minimize, optimize, run your test, Node.js, whatever, do all those stuff. So going back to the story, so back then in 2014, right, I was learning all of that back then. And I don't know if you heard of it, but MEAN.io was the trending framework, right? It started as a framework, now it's a platform for full-stack JavaScript. So I was thinking, well, that's nice. Does someone thought about connecting all of those pieces together, right? So I can start working with that. So I started working with that. I was thinking I can learn that. And how do you learn best? Right? You get involved in an open source project, right? So that's what you do, and you start committing code, and you start from documentation or whatever it is, and you get involved. And it's fun for a while, right? You go, I want to do JavaScript, everything I'm going to do JavaScript, right? That's how you feel about it. And then you get all happy, and things seems to make sense, and you think you arrived to heaven because it's JavaScript everywhere. All the web is JavaScript. Everyone are talking about it. But then this happens, and it's not good. You have MEAN.io and you have MEAN.JS, and what's the problem there, right? What's the story behind that? So the story there is that there is a guy called Amos, very skillful. He worked for the company that created and brought to the world MEAN.io, but they didn't see eye to eye for many things and had conflicts, right? So he had to leave out, but he wanted to open source the framework and give it to others. So what he did, fork it, right? And called it MEAN.JS. And that's nice, but fragmentation again for you, and that's not so nice for us. So as Robert Frost used to say in this very cool poem, was that there's two roads, right? And you have to choose one of them. So I chose one. That was it. And it was nice. I really liked it. And why did I choose that? So one of the reasons that I didn't want to go for MEAN.io, and it has its place, but that was getting to be a platform, not a framework. It was thinking like in Drupal terms or WordPress, where you can have plugins built into that, and it was just blowing too much for me. I didn't want to go for a platform. I wanted to go for something that is more, less opinionated, less bloated. I can go in and do whatever I want inside. So that's why I love MEAN.JS. It's lightweight. You get everything organized. You get a structure, and you don't necessarily, they don't dictate everything, right? You can go inside, and if you don't want Angular, you can easily go ahead, remove whatever you need from there, and put something else. You can put Ember. That's really cool. That's really easy. And it's true for any other thing. It's very easy to go inside. So it's opinionated, but configurable and extendable. It's framework than a boilerplate and far from, and he talked about it. And I think most importantly, it's community-oriented, right? We are there. We are very active. We try to be active, right? And we try to listen to what other people have. So if you want to contribute and get on board, that's really easy, right? We're missing some features now, so you can check the pull request backlog and help out. We would really love that. So I loved it so much at that point that I don't know how it happened, but somehow I became the lead maintainer for that. It was very fun for me. I was picking up seemingly where Amos left off, because I was looking at that threshold and I was looking at it. And if you take my commits and put them like on a mirror and on Amos's, you'd see that we somehow complete each other. And that's like, I don't know how that happened, but it does. And I guess it's part of the dynamic of working in open source. So it's nice that there's always someone that picks up, right? And the guys are now really busy when I'm here with you, so I'm enjoying it. So I loved it so much that I started to do hackathons with it. I started to build this dashboard and small projects, and we had this hackathon at the office that we wanted to build a dashboard. And right, you can always go and start scratch, do Node, do Angular, do those stuff. But you take MEAN.JS, it's a boilerplate, it's a framework, right? You take that, you clone it, and you start from that point. And the really amazing part about it is that, well, I hate UI, so I don't try that. So there's this thing called Freeboard. It's like you get on all the Angular, all the front end and widgets and the front end stuff, and they give you all of that for free. So it was like 5 minutes to clone MEAN.JS and tell it that, put that, in the Bower stuff, get it, download it, and I was like, the index file, well, go to go to Freeboard. And that's it, I had it, right? And the next thing is that, those UI widgets, so a little bit about that is the way that it works is those UI widgets, they do basically AJAX calls to get all of your JSON data. But if you try to do that to external servers, you have the problem of cores and stuff like that. So again, the easiest thing, in MEAN.JS, you go inside, you add a route, local route, and that proxies it to an external API, and that's it. Boom, it's working, right? No headache. So from MEAN.JS and trying to really take that back to what we do every day is at work. Is something that hit me is that this is an opportunity to grow, because at this point in time at work we have Java, right? We have a Java project which is very big, it's a backend. We have a Python agent, right, and the UI that we need to support. And on top of that, we have the whole front-end Drupal PHP thing, and there's like 10 developers, and they have to deal with that somehow, right? And it's not very easy. It's complex, it's so many frameworks and platforms, and you have to figure it out. So I knew I was going to have to try to get the team to be consolidated on some technology stack and framework, but it takes timing and planning. So that was really when I found out that the frameworks and the web was blowing anyway with JavaScript stuff. So it made sense to go for MEAN, right? The MEAN stack, and that doesn't necessarily tie you down to Angular. You can choose Ember, whatever it is, but really the JavaScript ecosystem there. So we did that, and this is, you said before, this is the way that it's supposed to look like, and this system really is at the heart of what we do at HP Software, because it's a content marketplace that serves other people, right? And it has to scale, and we need to work with that pressure. So some of the numbers here, it's not Facebook, it's not consumer end product, but there are millions of requests that we have to deal with. And we are a small team, and we're doing end-to-end stuff. We do support, and we do operations and DevOps and all of those stuff, and we have to shift around, and it's not so very easy. So if you add to that all the stuff that only 2 developers can know Drupal and PHP, and I don't want to train the other 6 to know that as well, right? They know their stuff at Java. So the JavaScript area is really allowing us to get everything consolidated when we need to, and we can work better like that. So I told you, we had basically, that's the timing, right? That's like 5 years old LAMP stack that we need to push out somehow and then roll out something new. And 5 years in software, I mean, come on, that's like 700 Chewbacca years. You're going to look like that, right? That's worse than dog's years. So that's a lot of time, and you have to move out. So we had options to stay right in PHP Drupal. We could upgrade. There's now 8 and whatever it is. That's nice, but that's not for us. We decided not to go there. So these were really, as a manager, these were really the strategic decisions that we had to take technology-wise. Was, we want to build on expertise that we had in the team. We're going to keep our Java, right? Java and JavaScript, that works well together. You don't have the serialization point, and that works well. You want to consolidate our platform, to Java and JavaScript, because that makes sense at that point. And we want to go for a microservices architecture, because Node really allows to do that, and it's easier for us to scale this way. So if I had to boil that down to what we have, is, without going to the details of everything, it's basically that. You can take a look at that. So there's the web, right, the load balancer at the top. There's the API requester going to the Java backend, and that talks to MongoDB, and we have some Redis caching area there. And requests are coming into the front end. So the front end is basically, so that's not MEAN.JS, for example, but it's very close. It's a YOM and Angular full stack generator. And we just took it, right, generated it, and moved on with it to do what we needed to do on top of it. But I try to put, if you see it, the MEAN.JS logo all over the microservices that we have. So everything, of course, is our JSON APIs, and everything is stateless, so I can just take that server and clone it wherever else I need to. So you have a permissions layer, and even our assets like images and stuff like that, we serve them from another MEAN.JS server. We don't interrupt the front end for that. So I think what we're really doing now, and this is really important, is we are embracing a lot of those open source technologies at work. We are working with them day to day. One of the devs worked with Font Awesome library, and he found a bug, and we were pushing a pull request to fix that upstream, and it was accepted. So we're really doing a lot of collaboration there, and it's great to see that we are able still to do that, right? Bigger corporations, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, that's big. So I want to go back to open source again, and this is why to contribute to open source, right? I mean, we're talking about that, and we all have our lives, and it's busy. So it really feels good to give back, like I can tell you that. And I think it's about being something, bigger than what you are, right? And contributing to something big. That's nice, right? To making the world a better place. What's a better way to establish experience, right? Hands-on university or whatever, not university, right? You're out of university, but you want to experience React or whatever it is. So what's a better way than, contribute and go on and learn it, right? So it's better than a resume because I can tell you that when we look, if people used to recruit, they would get CVs, right? But then again, they are now looking at LinkedIn profiles, so that's nice, but now we are actually looking at GitHub profiles and what are you doing in the community, right? Things are changing. People are looking at what you are doing at the community. I don't need you to come in and give me a technical interview and write some software. It's a waste of my time and your time probably. But I can go into your GitHub account or see where you have contributed and, doesn't have to be code. Sometimes you just do issues and, review some stuff and then comment on it. And that's great. I know you are there. I get that feeling. So this is really where we are moving. And of course, that's a great way to make connections and great speakers here. I'm happy to have met you. So of course, exposure and personal branding, that's obvious, right? That's how you get recruited. So how do you contribute to open source, right? And this is really what I want to give you so you can go take that out. So easy stuff, right? File a bug report. That's easy. You test something, it's not working, you file it. So another thing is you do a screenshot or a demo. I mean, we saw Tom's, right? Tom's demo, that's nice. If someone had created that for me, push it, some $audio stuff for my project, I would appreciate it. And Gutam also had a demo for that. So that's nice. If you do it and give that for the maintainer, add an issue for that, that's great. They would appreciate it, and it's a great way for you to learn. And of course, tutorials make a good way, and documentation, we're developers, right? Documentation is not for us. If you want to know what's going on, you can go and read my code, right? Right? You can read my comments if I was thinking that anyone needs that. So documentation is really always good and appreciated, and there's really a lot to do there. So if you can do that, that's great. And of course, it's another great way of learning, and contributing to open source software because you learn from that, right? You don't just write some stupid stuff. So getting involved in the issue really closes that. So even this deck, right? It's open source. It's to that extreme, right? So how that is. So probably some of you heard, right? Reveal.js is a project that allows you to build those presentations, right, from Markdown or from HTML. You can choose whatever you want, and you can do that. You can take this slide, right? If you want to offer me any, I don't know, there were typos or whatever, go ahead, fork it on GitHub. I'll accept pull requests. That's nice. If you want to offer a new slide for my next, right, when are we having the next helloJS? So if you want to build a slide for me, I will accept that as well. So thank you. I'll appreciate it. And I figured out that we are at Valentine's week, right? We are. I hope you bought flowers for your wives and girlfriends. If you didn't, you'll go home and probably an empty bed, so sorry for that. So let's take that Valentine's thing and give some love to an open source project. What do you say? Anyone's up for that? Yeah? Okay, great. So what I would need for that is someone with a GitHub account who remembers his password. And if you have two-factor authentication like I do, it's going to SMS you to get that. So if you're, on your GitHub account and want to help me contribute, come in. Invite you to step up. It will be easy, I promise. I'm going to try and take the opportunity with Tom's latest GitHub member network thing, and we'll try to help him out. I'm going to submit a pull request. I promise it's nothing frightening. I will guide you through the process. You do not need to know anything. Come on, that was a sales pitch. Right, so who's coming in? I can do it myself, but you will be contributing. That's nice. Paul, you want to come in? Because I think they're just like
no, but
lunch.
I think there are not many people, so it's not easy to have a volunteer, I guess.
Right, like 300. And you really caught us with that because you said, hey, Liran, come. It's going to be nice and small, 25 people, not a big JavaScript community. And I'm getting hit with that, so thank you.
Yeah,
and thank
you're
you,
welcome.
right, for all of you to showing up here. Thank you.
You.